Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of YOML, a year of magical learning. Today we're on book 113, 113. So it's a book that I have, I guess, on the fence about, but I'll let Chris introduce the book and we can talk about it.
The book is called Let My People Go Surfing, The Education of a Reluctant Businessman by Yvon Chouinard, who is Yvon Chouinard is the legendary climber, businessman, environmentalist, and founder of Patagonia. This is the story of his life, the founding of Patagonia, how they do things differently, and how he imparts his values onto the business in general. We all picked this book together. Blake, I think you read this with us, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a while ago, but
Yeah, I feel like that was almost 2 years ago now that we all read
Mhm.
this one. I'll pause there because I know that we all had mixed feelings on the book itself. I mean, that's not the reflection. That doesn't really have much to do with the book, but I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on just the book in general. Would you recommend it, number one?
I guess it depends on what you want. I mean, to me, if you want to learn how, I guess you could, but at the same time, I think it's the lessons you want to take away from it. And so, like I said, I've learned something from reading the book. I don't like the book because of the way that it's presented. And I can tell you more. We're talking about it in the book.
We can talk about it.
I don't know if I should tell people about the book.
Blake, what's your thoughts?
well, I remember that there wasn't much that stuck with me. I felt like it was pretty slow, pretty boring, and it's just kind of like I remember after reading it, I didn't feel like there were any great major takeaways or anything. I was kind of like, okay, that's what it is, what it is. And then I mean, I forgot honestly most of it. I just remember bits and pieces of it, but I told you, it didn't leave a big impression on me.
Yeah, fair enough. I think we're all in the same camp here. I mean, this is a book that I personally would recommend on this journey. You know, it's funny. This is probably about the turning point of this journey, in my personal opinion, of when I just really stopped reading business books in general. Like, this was the nail in the coffin for me almost, where I was like, gosh, I don't want to learn what these people were trying to teach and the message they're getting across this. Because I was like, I want to, and we want to think differently about how we go through this whole entire process and how we think of clubbing and how we think of the culture that we're trying to build.
Wasn't this a nickel recommendation?
It was actually it was a book that he was like, I heard, Let My People Go Surfing was like a really, I mean, it is, to be fair, like it's a really highly rated, business book. I mean, this guy's a really famous, successful entrepreneur and eccentric personality, and a lot of people really enjoy it. Anyway, all right. Enough of the book review. That's not what the Year of Magical Learning is about. The Year of Magical Learning is about learning and what did we learn from this book and how do we apply it to our life. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get to it. Reflection for the day is about the Seventh Generation Iroquois. And this is something that Drew and I know we hold near and dear to our heart. This is actually the Seventh Generation Iroquois meeting right now. We'll get to what that means in a second here, but the Year of Magical Learning came out of our Seventh Generation Iroquois meeting, and now it has usurped our Seventh Generation Iroquois meeting. This is what we focus on right now, to build out our values and to figure out, how we want Clubany to look 7 generations into the future. So on to the reflection in general. So Yvon Chouinard, so he started off, as you guys know, you guys read the book, he started off as the Patagonia. He liked being outdoors. He liked expressing his values and things that he really enjoyed, and that was being outside, rock climbing, doing stuff that he was passionate about, and being out in nature. Like, this is what he cared about. He saw a problem in his own little area to build some nicky-nacky things here and there to help his passions and rock climb better, and help his buddies and his meaningful relationships out there to help rock climb better as well, and started making equipment to help them all, and paid the bills, and he was able to continue to do what he did, and he was living a pretty balanced life. He was really enjoying it. Slowly but surely, as time went along, he started to get asked for more and ended up making more and more things, and then slowly but surely the scales tipped. I don't know when it happened, but slowly but surely, as the company grew, he founded a company and then started to get a lot of customers, and then he started to find out that he had to have customer service and hire employees, and this business kind of snowballed out of what originally was just him trying to help feed his own passions and values. Now the scales tipped, and he found himself in a situation where he was a failing businessman, failing nature enthusiast, and failing at all the things in his life. That was when Patagonia really shifted around in general. That was when they really put a pause on the business, and they all took a hard look in the mirror, and they all decided, hey, if we're going to run this business, let's run it the way that we want to run it and do it for the reasons why we care about. So that was when Patagonia really shifted and took off and turned to more of a value-based business. They said, hey, this is what we care about. This is how we're going to operate, and this is what we're going to do. Very similar to what we're trying to do here with Clubany in general. So once they finally made that strategic shift and really locked in on hammering away at their purpose and their values, that was when Patagonia took off. And out of that spun a lot of really innovative ideas of work-life integration. And they were pretty cutting edge for their time by expressing their values in general and some of the ideas that came out of that. One of those ideas that came out of it was something called the Seventh Generation Iroquois, which I didn't know at the time. This was something I learned from the book. That's the idea that was taken from the Iroquois tribe, where they have this philosophy where they always try to make every decision and think, how would this impact the welfare of 7 generations into the future if we make this decision today, right? So Patagonia formed the Seventh Generation Iroquois committee, and every decision that they made, they really filtered through that lens of, hey, this is what we care about. This is the world we want it to look like and the impact that we want to have in the future. So they would filter it through this 7th Generation committee. I thought that was a really innovative idea and really loved it. And we loved it so much that we actually turned it into our own 7th Generation committee meeting every single night. So after True and I met, we would meet every single night, and we were building this idea, and Clubany was slowly starting to take shape, and we were learning all this new stuff, and we were expressing and living our values. After we finished this book, somewhere along the way, that nightly meeting that True and I had, we got the great idea to call that our 7th Generation Iroquois meeting. So that was our meeting to talk about, like, what is Clubany? What are the values that we want to build here? What's the vision? What's the mission? What's the future that we want to, and the decisions that we want to build going forward? The big difference between what we're doing and what Patagonia is doing is we're doing this beginning with the end in mind from the start. They had a pivot midway through. Most businesses, I feel like, are that as well. I feel like they just start because something works, and then midway through, they either figure it out or they don't figure it out, or they make that shift or they don't make that shift, starting from the beginning of Clubany and this culture that we're trying to build with that 7th Generation Iroquois idea in mind, and always filtering everything that we do through that value framework. And it's been pretty powerful. I mean, this magical learning journey came out of that committee meeting, and that's what we're doing today. So personally, for me, the big lesson, summing it all up here, is that's the power of core values in a nutshell. They can give you the control and direction you need to build that sustainable universe. And if you always strive to filter your decisioning through that core values engine, I think you're going to be a success no matter what the outcome, even if it sucks. Even if it's a total disaster, you at least know you did what you said you care about, and that's a success in my mind. So I'll pause there. The question I can pose for you guys is, what would happen if you stopped reacting to the world around you, started using your core values to play offense instead, instead of like the Patagonia people where they were playing defense the whole time until they decided to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. How would that impact your life? So I'll pause there. Love to get your guys' thoughts.
What are you cracking it first, Blake?
What's that?
Blake?
I mean, I just think about a lot of the companies that I've worked for, and even like my parents have started their own business, and how maybe like why you originally they get into something and then kind of what it turns into. It becomes, very reaction, based on something that pops up in the moment, either a shiny object, trying to pivot because it sounds good in the moment, that might help them. And it just seems like a lot of people, it doesn't become enjoyable anymore. They make decisions thinking about, what might benefit them right now, and they aren't really thinking very far in the future. I mean, I'm sure we saw a lot of that where we worked, Chris, where there were a lot of pivots.
It was like a squirrel. I mean, it's like the cartoon with it. He's like, squirrel, whoop, and I mean, it was every single day. It was like, what? We're going that way.
And I've worked at another company where it's like, hey, this is the market we want to go after. And we kept telling them, this market, there's only so many people we can sell to. And after that ran out, all the salespeople were in a bad position, because then all of a sudden we pretty much saturated the market, and we hadn't planned and done any market research on other markets. It's interesting too. It seems like, from what I've heard from people who live in other countries, that Americans are very instant gratification focused. And it seems like mindsets of people in other countries are more thinking down the road and like long-term effects. And I think that's something that I know, at least I can't speak for all people, but I know at least me, I have to be very conscious and aware of thinking about my actions and decisions and how it can affect other people, and how it can, what effects and what could be the results, not just right instantly, but down the road that could happen from my decisions that I make or actions that I take. And I just have to be very conscious and aware to think sometimes a little bit further ahead about decisions that I make, actions that I take. And I think we need to think more like that. And I don't think most people do a very good job of that.
I think people do an awful job.
Or usually think about how it's going to benefit. This is what I want right now. This is how it's going to benefit me. And they don't see the ramifications or, potential downfalls that could happen from it, or other people it could affect negatively. It's kind of like, this is what I want and this is what I want now. And they don't really think outside of what they want in that moment and how it could benefit them. And that's all they focus on.
I mean, any business can fail. Like, let's just be honest with you. Any culture can fail. But what I know won't be a failure at the end of the day is if I'm doing stuff with you guys and we're having fun and we're doing what we're doing. I don't care if we just folded up shop tomorrow and said, hey, this just isn't working out or whatever. I know that I'm going to still keep fighting for living a balanced life in my life. And at the same time, I know that I had a really fun time doing this with you guys. So like, that's what Patagonia has. They have a whole culture built around this stuff now. They didn't before. Like before, there was no, I guess, kind of why behind it, right? They just were reactionary. They were doing what they needed to do just to make ends meet, and they were doing none of it good. Like here's my kind of just general thought. Like, look, any business like is gonna have, we don't know what the ramifications are of what we're doing today or not. Like, and I don't really care. All I know is if I'm doing it with people that I like and I'm doing stuff that I like, then I'm cool with it. That's my thought on a lot of this stuff where the Seventh Generation Iroquois comes into play. If the actions that we decide to do today are guided by our values that ultimately lead to meaningful work and meaningful relationships, I don't care what the hell we do. And I'm sure in 7 generations we'll be proud of what we did, but I know that we won't if we say like, hey, we got to go make some money. Like we got to turn this into a business venture that makes money, or we got to hit this quarterly profit so we can hire more people. If we start to make decisions based off of growth or business metrics, our decisions are all about the culture, right? This is all about how do we want to live and who do we want to bring into this world? And that's that. And it shouldn't change.
It seems like most people I know businesses that fail, or people that, end up saying, okay, I'm done with this now. But by the end, like you said, hey, no matter what, you'd be like, hey, I enjoyed it. It was worth it. A lot of people, it seems by the end, it's stressful. They hate it.
Yeah.
And, it's no longer enjoyable, which I think that's very common to have something, that maybe started with good intention and joy in the beginning turns into that.
I agree.
So for me, it's like it's different between playing offense and defense. Everybody's playing defense. And if you don't have an offensive playbook, meaning you're not looking down the line, you're not doing, it reminds me of that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he's talking about the quadrants, the important, but not urgent. And if you think and you play the playbook in the sense of looking for the long-term goal versus today, because whatever we do today, people don't think about it because they're not playing offense, they're playing defense. They're reacting to the stimuli around them. And so when you do that, you're not gonna last long because eventually you're gonna get bored or you can get stressed out. And most of the time it's not gonna go your way because you are reacting to the things and things are moving before you have a chance to do anything with it. But you play an offense, the outcome that you plan more likely than not, it will come to have a percentage much higher to come to a fruition than playing defense. I mean, defense is almost like 0.00000%, right? If you're playing offense, you may have like maybe 5%. It's still low, but much higher than 0.0001, right? And so for me, if you're talking about the book, the quadrant, you're talking about your long-term goal, which is 10 years, 20 years. But if you're taking the Iroquois, the 7th generation Iroquois, you're taking that 7th time. That's really long. And when you do that, there's 2 things you get. First thing is, you are going to have a heck of a good time doing whatever effort that you're doing because that aligns with your value and that's what you wanted to do. It's not because you had to, it's because you wanted to.
Right.
Regardless of whether like you could have saying, if today or tomorrow we say, hey, we call it quits. We still had fun. We still had the good time and we still have good memories. And I have no regret in terms of the effort and the time I put into it. And so to me, that is a worthwhile endeavor as a long term. And the 7th generation Iroquois is going to
for long.
It's long enough generations that even 7th generation down, whatever you did, you still be proud of whatever outcome. A lot of time when you act in something, it's okay today, but then the next generations or next year, it's not what you really wanted. Therefore, you are struggling to hold it like a hot potato. versus something that you want to have and want to hold and keep. And so having the proaction of creating your own seventh generation, thinking about, okay, if I did this today, how would it impact the company or whatever, seventh generation down? And you do that, you're gonna have the best of both worlds, meaning that you're gonna enjoy and you're gonna get what you want. Because even if you don't get what you want, you still enjoy it because that you are aligning the action with something that it fulfills you.
I think of two really important things. I agree with everything you just said. Obviously, this is what we do. I think of first and foremost this Year of Magic Learning journey. For forever, in perpetuity, we have documented what our values are, what's important to Clubbing. And then we talked about it. Like, this will be here forever, right? Like, this will never go away. And if anybody ever goes, how did you guys get to this? Well, here we go. You can follow along with this journey. We can use this content however we want to. At the same time, we're formulating our ideas even further and further as we go through this whole journey together. By the time we come out of this, it'll be just a start, but at least we know for sure what's important to this culture that we are trying to build, that is what we call Clubbing. And we know what we want to do going forward. And anybody it will never be a question where the intentions were. And if they don't align with it, then they don't align with it. Like, I don't care if that's not important to you. And the stuff and how we got to, we're documenting it all as we go of how we got to where we got to. And this is a seventh generation activity, right? Like, I can imagine 7 generations in the future when we're far removed, figuring out some way, shape, or form, like what did Chris and True think about this, and like why did this happen? Well, it's here. Like, this is where it came from, and this is why it's here. That's why this activity aligns to that idea, and vice versa. I'll give you another great example of, there's a reason why we're not doing the core values quest today. Journey mapping of this whole entire, it was getting way too complex and way too over the top, and we were like, well, we got to feed the, we got to have this much in the pipeline, and like, you know what I mean? Like, it was too much. Like, this is not what we want to do. It didn't align to what we were trying to accomplish here from, like, with that 7th generation Iroquois side of everything. So that was why we put a pause to it, and we still know what we want to do coming out of this whole entire thing. And we'll get to it in time, but that doesn't matter to us. I guess we're doing what we can do today to progress this culture. Where it goes into the future, like, I know that it feels safe and protected right now today, and some of the stuff that we were doing before, I don't think that aligned. I think it was getting too much. We were specifically trying to go recruit people to do certain things, like, that's not how this is supposed to work. It's supposed to be organic, and people that are enjoying what they're doing, and we're aligning to that and creating meaningful work and meaningful relationships.
It just wouldn't last 7 generations. It just
Right.
won't. The activity we doing with the core values quest, it just doesn't align. It doesn't, it could not sustain for 7 generations. If we think about the year of magical learning, can we sustain that for 7 generations? Of course we can. The thing is, we get my kids in and your kids in, right, and then they're gonna do the same thing. They're gonna learn. Thing is, in life, if you don't learn, then what else is there? It's not like you can stop learning. So when we're doing the year of learning, right, the YOML episode, we're learning every day, right? That's something that for me, I don't see an end to it. And I can pass that on to my kids, and my kids to their kids, and their kids to their kids. And that can sustain 7 generations. So looking at that as a compass, right? We know that this is something that can be sustained 7 generations. The core values quest isn't yet. We need to maybe refine it in a way that could be, right. But at the first attempt, the first versions of the core values quest, it wasn't sustainable. It was a short-term thing. And that's why we pivot. We say, hey, it doesn't align. Right. For the 7th generation, it could not live that long. If we use that as a compass to map, basically use as a guide to go back to the middle, because what we tried is quest, and it wasn't aligning. We said, well, we need to stop. We can't continue to do, because we knew where the compass was. We knew where the point of reference was, and that helped us. Otherwise, we'd be spinning our heads around, wasting our time doing the core values quest, stressing out because we have no idea what we're doing. Right. We won't enjoy trying to coordinate and operate this core values quest. And that's the biggest thing that the Iroquois, 7th generation Iroquois, is giving us more clarity and directions, because we have this long path that any detraction from it is going to show. Yeah. Right. And so we don't waste.
It's sustainable. I mean, it's not sustainable. Like doing
No, we-
stuff for, like Blake was saying, doing stuff out of necessity because you think that, you know, like we don't know anything. We don't know where this is going. Like, you know, like we cannot predict. Sure, you might have some short-term success. Like if you really try to impose your will onto something, you might have some short-term success. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that have short-term success and then they get sold or acquired or fold or whatever it may be. But you know, like, there's very few cultures that survive 150 years, 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. You know, I mean, there's like the rarefied air when you get into that seventh generation, you know, cultures that are still around, that are functioning and growing and thriving. That's rare, right? I mean, like that's really, really rare. I mean, that would be something that started in the 1800s at this point in time and is still around today. So, I mean,
you count those on your hands. The businesses that was, you know, started in 1800 and still here today.
Right. I mean, it can't be more than 40 or 50, but I mean, it's not a lot. I think we can all feel safe to say that. So yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting concept and it's something that, like, if you do it right and you leverage it right, I think everybody's happier along the way. True. Or even Blake. I mean, I know you did some of the stuff with us with the core values quest in terms of trying to operationalize a little bit and to be a mentor. It just wasn't sustainable to what we were trying to do. Blake, what was your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think if it's something that someone is seeking, I think it can be a good thing. As it's sustainable, can it be repeated with guaranteed success every time? No. But I think there's a lot of benefit and value to it if someone is seeking or searching for something like that.
Right.
You're right. Can you build a business and try to? It's not something you can necessarily go out and try to sell to people. It's something almost someone has.
We could, but that's not what we're trying to do. I mean, there's a lot of people that try to sell personal growth and development journeys. That wasn't what our goal was. That had nothing to do with what building a culture was about. And that was what it became like this operation around a small portion of what we were trying to do. What you and I did, and Drew and you and I, all three of us did together with your journey, that was totally organic. That was people trying to explore. That was the seventh generation activity. Like when it was just picking up random people off of Upwork and throwing them in just to feed a pipeline number and trying to build operations around it and forcing that. Then that was us trying to force our will onto something. And that's not sustainable.
Yeah, and the key word is forcing it because, you know, it's one of those things where it has to align because the person that comes into a company, they have to want it and they have to be initiated by themselves. Hey, you know, I want to learn, I want to be better. And this is a way for me to do that. And that can be sustainable. It's about trying that person to have his own motivations without forcing it. Yes, you can say, well, I can be a guy for you, and then you have to be a guy for someone else, and you are making that person doing something they may not want. But if a person wants to teach and a person wants to learn, it's a natural connections. And to me, that is sustainable. So we have to, like I say, the core values quest is not a total failure. It's just that we have to tweak it to the point where it has to be self-driven. It cannot be forcing somebody to say, hey, you know, you going through this quest, right? And then you're gonna have to guide somebody to do the quest, and they have to guide somebody to quest. Yes, it could be done, but you have to give them an external incentive, an external push or stimuli to make them do that.
Right.
What we want is we want to have somebody say, I want it so much that I'm willing to pay you to learn from you. Right. And so that's the thing is they have that incentive to learn. And then the guy inside they have the joy of being able to guide somebody. I mean, that me and Kirsten, we love to guide people as long as they want to do it genuinely, not because they say, oh, I have to go do this value quest because I want something else. And so to me, that isn't sustainable because it's like a meme, right? A meme is like a joke. If I tell you a joke and you think it's funny, you can tell someone else, and they can tell someone else, and they can tell someone else. So you want a joke that can be replicated like a meme. I mean, spread like that, like an idea. And so building something with the seventh generation in mind will have those kind of characteristics. And like that would kind of carry on without having to have a lot of force and energy put into it.
It's like Fight Club, you know, when they would show up on the door,
yes,
and they would stand outside the door for, you know, what was, I don't know, 4 days, and somebody would just come and say something, whatever that whole process was, and like, you know, they're like, I want to be here. I mean, I want this culture. I want to be a part of that. Like, right? So, like, we're laying the track, if you will, for that right now.
We don't talk about company.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's 200 and I think 47 of these so far, and I'm at like 250 or something like that. I just loaded these up a couple days ago. We're marching toward 365, and at the end of the day, though, that's not stopping there either. I could foresee people doing their own journeys, and we talked about
Would
making the
you
book.
guess a
Oh
guess
yeah,
reflection, right?
yeah, snow road guess
Exactly. So
reflection.
this is where the distributions of the idea is going
Right.
to take off, because you're gonna have a guest post, and then other people will say, hey, I like his post, I have my own thoughts, I'm gonna do a post as well, and then they just continue and continue and keep getting bigger like a snowball.
What's funny is I've been whenever I post these new ones on here, I have to go back and read my own stuff and do a little bit of editing or whatever. And I don't even remember anymore half the stuff that I wrote, but I'm almost like, man, that's a really good reminder. Like I need to go read my own stuff again. And that's why I love doing this. It's a good reminder about the Seventh Generation Iroquois. It's not a word that Drew and I have said in a long time. That was what this meeting was and became, but we don't even talk about it anymore because we just know like this is the Seventh Generation Iroquois meeting, but we don't say these things and we don't talk about what that means and we don't talk about some of this other stuff. This is why this is so important for us to go through these things. And I'm probably going to go back through my own year magical learning journey for the rest of my life in some capacity, because like this is my memory palace. These are important learned lessons that have been hard fought and struggled through and discussed, and what we're building going forward. And we have to lead by example. I mean, we are the culture, right? Like this is what we do. Like this is what we're trying to do, and this is how we want to live our life, to find meaningful work and develop meaningful relationships and live a balanced existence. It feels good.
And as a human being, those are the two things that we need, because we are social creatures and we need to have some kind of meaningful work. And that's something that is universal in everybody that I've come across. I mean, 99 of all human beings would need meaningful work and meaningful relationship.
You guys have any final thoughts here before we wrap for the day?
Yeah, you have to play offense. Don't play defense if you don't have to.
Love it. Blake?
Yeah, applies not only in business.
Life, whatever is involved life, play offense.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, if it doesn't fit, stop doing it.
I mean, that's why I love football. Okay, if it doesn't work, try a different play.
Right. What you care about doesn't go away. Exactly. Our goal is still to learn something every day. There could be 500 bajillion things that we do together as a clubany that expresses that value. It doesn't have to be this. It could be whatever, but it could also be an infinite number of other ways to express that. So if you hit a dead end and you're not doing that, then stop it. And if you've run your course through whatever you're trying to do, then I look at my wife right now and I love her to death, but she's struggling, because she just started a charter school. She's also doing 2 jobs because she's teaching right now because they're so growing enrollment and she needs to step into the classroom, but she's also trying to start, it's a startup basically. I mean, she's struggling to find time to exercise, to do other stuff she likes to do. And I need to step up and help her because she matters to me and she's important to me. But at the same time, these are the activities that you want to almost take a pause back. If we're talking about what we're talking about right now, it's like, okay, what can I do in that environment? If I was her, what can I do in that environment that I really care about? And that's all I'm going to focus on, because I can't do all this other stuff because I can't just force it. The more that I force it, the more that I get depressed.
Out of control.
Right.
And then each decision that you make, it's not just like, okay, this is what I need to do in this moment to make this work. Also, it's like, well, how is this affecting my relationship with my husband? Or how is this real? It's like you have to think ahead. Maybe when you're just focused on making something work in the moment, to also take a step back and say, what kind of effects could this be affecting down the road that I don't see while I'm just trying to accomplish my goal right this second?
That's a great point. I mean, that's the compound effect both ways, right? Like, the more that you force things, the more that the compound effect goes the opposite direction in a negative manner. And the more that you align things, the more the compound effect goes in the direction that we want it to go. It's going in the right direction toward the 7th generation, mindset, I guess, if you will. So yeah, that's a great point.
It goes both ways.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for the conversation, fellas. The question we can leave for everybody following along is, what would happen if you stopped reacting to the world and started using your core values to play offense instead? Thanks for joining us, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Sounds good. See ya.